2024, ladies and gentlemen, has been a coming of age year for India's startup ecosystem in many ways. I think there has been, of course, a course correction where India's startups have realized the value and the potential of fiscal discipline. There's also been a convergence between public market valuations and private market valuations in many ways. And the IPO story has really given legitimacy and currency to India's startup ecosystem. So without further ado, let me talk to some of those who are part of the story and are really the flag bearers of taking this forward. Upasana, I'm going to come to you first. And guys, we do have to give a big round of applause to Upasana for what the team has managed to do with MobiKwik and the IPO.
I think the listing was definitely an arduous journey. I think not many people know, but we actually filed for the IPO at the beginning of 2024, and it took us an exact 12 months to get it done. So while I was very excited and happy for all my friends and, getting it done before me, I was also a little jealous कि यार इनका इतना fast हो रहा है, हमें इतना time क्यों लग रहा है? But I think the main thing was, as usual, keep hustling, keep trying and not giving up. So solve through the problems. I think it has been a difficult year for the fintech sector, given a little bit of extra caution on the regulatory side. But having gotten it done, I feel a little bit of validation. Everyone having told me that payments में पैसा नहीं बनेगा, profitable नहीं हो पाओगे, कुछ नहीं बन पाएगा. So I do feel a little better about that. But other than that, life goes on. It's all the same, and it's the next growth journey.
I remember you expressing very vocally your frustration with the fact that it was taking so long for you to actually get the approvals in place to go IPO. But I want to understand from you, what is the argument that paisa nahi banega, profitability nahi hogi, growth kahan se aayegi? What has changed? What has enabled the story to change to your mind? And what do you believe will be the growth levers from here on to build on the momentum that you're already seeing? What is the headroom for growth from here?
See, the headroom for growth is immense. I think that the payments market in India still has a long way to go because of the entire population. Still only 450 million Indians are actively transacting. So that market is going to double. And when it comes to all the other distribution products on the financial services side, which all of us payment platforms do, there the penetration levels are still less than 10%. So the growth is simply coming. Right now, payments is growing very rapidly for us, payments across all vectors. And we've become the largest wallet now in India. We're growing rapidly on UPI also. But I think for me, the most important thing is to do it sustainably and not like 1 year XX growth hai and second year, growth nahi hai. And so I think we are just trying to work with a moderate 40-50% growth every year and at the same time be very careful about the bottom line.
Prachi, let me come to you now. Your journey began in 2016. On the back of what you've just heard from Upasana, I want to hear from you. What's the bull case? What are you working towards? What has changed in India that you're betting?
So, at PayGlocal, we focus on solving for cross-border payments. So, from a, macroeconomic indicators perspective, of course, India GDP continues to grow, which means Indian consumers are going to participate more onto global payments. Indian merchants are seeing a lot of uptick in terms of international consumers transacting with them on, from a cross-border perspective. A lot of Indian brands are going global. As you rightly mentioned, a lot of investments happening in D2C brands who have started from India and they will kind of go global. With the current regulatory environment in India, there are only a few global players serving the Indian ecosystem when it comes to cross-border payments. There is no Indian fintech solving for the cross-border needs of the country. And given we are incorporated in India and building for the Indian ecosystem to begin with, I think it puts us in a very good advantageous points where we are able to create products which are for India. It's not a copy-paste of global products by the global companies who are selling the same product to the Indian consumer or the merchant ecosystem. So I think that's what we've been investing on, and I think it's been a great run.
Varun, let me ask you now on what the outlook is for ACCO over the next few years. What are you betting on? I know everyone's betting on an IPO at this point in time, and you included. So how soon? 2025 or 2026?
I shall say time will tell. But I'm very happy to be here in this gathering. I like the fact that insurance is sleepy space. Nobody here. Everybody wants
Is it really that sleepy?
everybody wants to do payments and lending. So I'm happy that nobody wants to do insurance. But yeah, it's one of those
Why
stories.
really that's the case?
I don't know. I'm happy. Everybody wants to do payments and lending. I'm quite happy. But frankly, I think insurance has always been for a while now. It's been a sunrise sector. It continues to grow. It's probably not even in India. I think globally, it's one of the last bastions that fintech has really tried to break through. So somewhere I feel privileged, blessed that I've had a 6-7 year journey on this, and hopefully ahead of the curve. I think business will continue to grow. I think there are many more Accos to be built in India.
What will it take to build many more Accos in India? I mean, just for the insurance sector, for instance, it continues to be grossly underpenetrated. And of course, we now have a fairly dynamic mix as far as regulation is concerned. The regulator has also been fairly active in the insurance space. But what will it take to build many more Accos?
I think it's critical for all of us to understand it's the youngest regulator, if I may say so, and also the youngest sector. There was no IRDA till 2001.
Yeah.
Because there was only an LIC and a New India that would serve us. So it's maturing as a regulator. I do believe that IRDA won't be far behind in terms of whether it's SEBI or RBI in terms of unleashing growth for the sector. I think it's still a sector slightly behind how young the sector is,
Yeah.
and how young the regulator also is.
Yeah.
But I think the inflection point has happened. So I'm quite excited.
You know, you said that the inflection point has already happened. So I want to pick up from where Upasana left off. What's the kind of growth that you're working with? What's the assumption? I mean, what is your modest number?
I was like suddenly questioning my own ability and my entire company's ability, because I haven't even IPO'd and I'm still struggling with 50% or 40%. I think 30 would be good. I'd be very happy. We're a balance sheet business, so I'm very happy with 30% year on year if we could do that.
Let me come to you because, second time proved to be lucky as far as the IPO is concerned. But IPO out of the way, what's the big India growth story that has really enabled the business to grow as it has? And what are the shifts or the trends that you're going to be focusing on, not just in 2025, but from here on?
I think in the early phase of online travel, I think companies were just trying to copy the Western model, launch with flights, go for hotels. But if you look at how many Indians actually fly, it's less than 4% of the population, right? So if you're trying to build a large online travel play, you got to go into the tier 2, 3, 4 markets, serve trains, buses, etc. Harder to build. It took like more than a decade to build out, but and harder to monetize as well. But I think our story kind of proves that you can build a large, viable, profitable business on a very large base of customers, right? Which probably will take longer, will need more patient capital to support it. But the good news is that people from Lucknow, Indore, Jaipur, they're coming and spending, and the share of wallet is growing year on year. So there's no letdown in the travel space. I keep hearing of slowdown, etc., but we're like, there's no slowdown. We are doing a modest 40% GTV growth as of the last reported quarter.
I want to understand from each one of you here, anybody who is building from India for the world.
95% of our revenue comes from outside of the country, largely millions of users across the world. We are also the category leader in our category, and I bet my life that we are the most differentiated product. We are a video creation software. And in the last 6, 7, 8 months, what we have seen is a bunch of American companies copying us. And it's just a very delightful thing to happen to an Indian company. I largely feel that we are somewhere caught with a disease of copying and like
You mean we are caught with the disease of copy?
Yeah.
Okay.
copying and taking inspiration from American companies and American models. And I think that needs to change. And that is what actually also makes us one of the fastest growing AI companies, because it's truly differentiated.
So what did you do different so that you're now having global companies copy what you do as opposed to the other way around?
I think it comes really down to picking a segment and then having an insight that brings in a large enough change for them to switch. So without that level of atomic insight, and why something should drastically change where people start adopting, that can't happen. I think most people don't work hard enough to get to that insight, and copying becomes an easier answer.
Sambhav, let me come to you now with what has changed as far as your business is concerned, what you believe have been the critical enablers, and more importantly, the kind of appetite you have for risk and for growth from here on.
At FamPay, we believe that everybody else is building for the affluent market. Everybody wants to build for the rich people who are 35 and above, 40 and above. We believe the next growth, India is a very young nation, right? Majority of our population is below 30. We want to build for the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha. And and the kind of products that the Gen Alpha and Gen Z needs, and this year marks the start of Generation Beta as well.
Yes.
Right?
But I'm feeling very, very old, even as you rattle off all of that. So
So the kind of products that the next generation wants to use, it's very different. The kind of designs they interact with, like just to share a small anecdote, one of our employees has a 2-year-old daughter, and when she picks up a magazine and she tries to zoom in the image.
yeah,
By-
because they're so used to living on a
Right.
mobile phone. Yeah.
So the expectations that they have from interacting with different kind of products is very different. And we believe that whenever we are talking about the next 500 million users on the internet, next billion users on the internet, the majority of them are going to come from this generation. And the pattern on how when they start to earn, it's changing a lot with internet and democratization that internet has provided. Kids are starting to create their own content, become Instagram influencers. So the next generation, how they spend money, how they interact with money, it's going to be very different. We believe that we have the opportunity to actually be the flag bearer on how they interact with their money.
Okay.
And we want to build everything that is possible to improve their relationship with money. And we have started with
What about your relationship with money?
still working on it.
How hard is that? Is it complicated?
It's a situationship. It depends.
It's a situationship. By when do you hope it'll turn into a relationship?
Yeah, it keeps changing. I think for me as a first time entrepreneur, starting very early, right out of college, the kind of exposure I've gotten with this entrepreneurial journey, I'm very grateful. And the kind of experiences you get, you keep on evolving much faster. So even today, I feel the company is 10 steps ahead of us and we are behind. We have to catch up with the company, right? So yeah, let's see where my relationship goes.
May your situationship convert into a relationship sooner than later. But Kunal, are you in a complicated situationship relationship? How are things going for you?
Well, we're in fintech.
So it's always complicated.
Yeah, I think complicated is our middle name. But no, I think there's been massive evolution. We are running a financial services platform for Indians, helping them with lending, insurance, savings, and UPI. So we work with all the regulators. We are heavily regulated with licenses from all the regulators. So obviously life is, I would say, busy. We spend a lot of time thinking about the business very differently from how we used to think about it, let's say about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the massive difference is that the intervention of regulators has also increased trust in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's been a big silver lining. And we see a huge amount of growth now coming outside of tier 1 cities. So we operate in about 1,200 plus cities, like 98% of India's pin codes, 19,000 plus pin codes. And the amount of growth we are seeing outside the top 50 cities is just phenomenal. So in terms of volume, it's beating the top 20 cities.
Is there room for everybody? Even if we see segmentation, verticalization, and specialization, is there room for everybody?
Well, I would say that there is room for legitimate businesses to come and solve a real problem,
Yeah.
but also be sustainable.